right, beautiful people. I'm gonna be reading Pride and Prejudice, Volume 2, Chapter 6. Let's start now. Yeah. Mr. Collins' triumphant acceptance of this invitation was complete. The power of displaying the grandeur of his patroness, of his wandering words, and of letting them see his civility towards himself and his wife was exactly what he had wished for, and that an opportunity of doing it should be given so soon was such an instant of Lady Catherine's condescension as he knew not how to admire enough. "I confess," said he, "that I should not have been at all surprised by his ladyship's asking him on Sunday to drink tea and spend the evening at Rosings. I rather expected, from my knowledge of her affordability, that it would happen, but who would have foreseen such an attention as this? Who could have imagined that we should receive an invitation to dine there? An invitation, moreover, including including the whole party. So immediately after the event, I am more or less surprised at what has happened," replied Sir Williams. "From the knowledge of what the manners of the great really are, which my situation in this life has allowed me to inquire about the court, and such instances of elegant breeding are uncommon. Scarcely any was talked of the whole day, and next morning, but their visits to Wilson, Mr. Collins was carefully instructing them in what they were to expect, and at the sight of such rooms, so many servants, and so splendid a dinner might not morally, morally overpower them. When the ladies were separating for the toilet, he said to Elizabeth, Do you not yourself uneasy, my dear cousin, about your peril? Lady Catherine is far from requiring the elegance of dress in us which becomes a servant daughter. I would advise you merely to put it on whatever of your clothes is superior to the rest. There is no occasion for me anything more." Sorry, sorry. "Lady Catherine will not think the worse of you for being I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I can't take this seriously. Wait, let's do it again. "Lady Catherine will not think the worse of you for being simply dressed. She likes to have the distinction of marked, ranked, preserved." While they were dressing, he came 2 or 3 times to their different colours to recommend their being quick, as Lady Catherine very much objected to be kept waiting for her dinner. Such made about account of her leadership and her manners of living quite frightened Mary Lucas, who had been little used to company, and she looked forward to her introduction at Wilson with such much ap- apprehension as her father had done to his presentation at St. James. As the weather was fine, they had a pleasant walk of about half a mile across the park. Every park has its beauty and its prospect. Elizabeth saw how much to be pleased with, and though she could not be in much raptures as Mr. Collins expected the scene to inspire, and was but slightly affected by the enumeration. Oh, I think I pronounced it right, but look up the pronunciation. Immuration. I think it's immuration. I think so, but let's see. Enumeration of the windows in front of the house, and his recollection of what the glazing together had originally caused Sir Louis de Bourgh. When they ascended the step to the hall, Maria's alarm was every moment increasing. Even Sir Williams did not look perfectly calm. Elizabeth's courage did not fail her. She had heard nothing of Lady Catherine that spoke her awful from any extraordinary talent or miraculous virtue, and the mere stateless statelessness of money and rank she thought she would weakness without try trepidation from the entrance hall, of which Mr. Collins pointed out with a rapturous and a fine proportion and finished ornaments. They followed the servant to an antechamber, to the room where Lady Catherine, her daughter, and Mrs. Jenkinson were sitting. Her ladyship was great condescension rose to receive them as Mr. Collins had settled it with her husband that the office of introduction should be hers, and it was performed in a proper manner, without any of those apologies and thanks which he would have thought necessary. In spite of having been at St. James, Sir Williams was so completely awed by the grand this is grandeur. Wait, let me look up this word. Grandeur surrounding him, that that he had he had but just carried enough to make a very low bow and take his seat without saying a word. And his daughter, frightened almost out of senses, sat on the edge of her table, not knowing which way to look. Elizabeth found herself quite equal to the scene, and could observe the three ladies before her composedly. Lady Catherine was tall, large woman with strongly marked features, which might once have been handsome. Her air was not concealed conciliating, 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 conciliating. Nor was her manner of receiving them such as to make her visitor forget their inferior rank. She was not rendered formidable by silence, but whatever she said was spoken in an authoritative tone, as marked as her self-importance, and brought Mr. Wilkins immediately to Elizabeth's mind, and from the observation of the day together, she believed Lady Catherine to be exactly what had represented. When after when after examining the matter in whose coincidence and deportment she soon found some resemblance of Mr. Darcy, she turned her eyes on the daughter, and she could almost have joined in Maria's astonishment at her being so thin and so small. There was neither in figure nor face any likeness between the ladies. Miss de Bourgh was pale and sickly. Her features, though not plain, was significant, and she spoke very little except in a low voice to Mrs. Jenkinson, in whose appearance there was nothing remarkable, and was entirely engaged in listening to what she said, and placing a screen in the proper direction before her eyes. After sitting a strong minute, they were all sent to one of the windows to admire the view Mr. Collins attending them to point out its beauty, and Lady Catherine kindly informing them that it was much better worth looking at in the summer. The dinner was exceedingly handsome, and there were all the servants and all the articles of the plate which Mr. Collins had promised, and as he had likewise foretold, he took his seat at the bottom of the table by her ladyship's desire, and looked as if he felt that life could furnish nothing greater. He carved an A and praised with delight. Alas,
Alacrity.
alacrity, and every dish was commended first by him and then by Sir William, who was now enough recovered to anchor whatever his son-in-law said in a manner which Elizabeth wondered Lady Catherine could bear. But Lady Catherine seemed gratified by their excessive admiration, and gave most gracious smiles, especially when any dish on the table proved a novelty to them. The party did not supply much conversation. Elizabeth was ready to speak whenever there was an opening, but she was seated between Charlotte and Mrs. de Bourgh, the former of whom was engaged in listening to Lady Catherine, and the latter said not a word to her all dinner time. Mrs. Jenkinson was chiefly employed in watching how little Miss de Bourgh ate, and passing her to try some other dish, and fearing she would indisposed. Maria thought speaking out of the question, and the gentleman did nothing but eat and admire. When the lady returned to the drawing room, there was little to be done, and to hear Lady Catherine talk, the which she did without any intermission till coffee came, this delivering her opinion of every subject in so decisive a manner as proved that she was not used to have her judgment controverted. She inquired into Charlotte's domestic concern similarly and minutely, and gave a great deal of advice as to the management of them all, told her how everything ought to be regulated in so small a family of hers, and instructed her as to care of her cows and her poultry. Elizabeth found that nothing was beneath this great lady's attention which could furnish her with an occasion of di- dictating to others. In the interviews of the discourse with Mrs. Collins, she addressed a variety of questions to Maria and Elizabeth, but especially to the latter, of whom connection she knew the least, and who observed to Mrs. Collins was a very genteel,
Genteel.
pretty kind of girl. She asked her at different times and how many sisters she had, whether they were older or younger than herself, whether any of them were likely to be married, and whether they were handsome, where they had been educated, what courage her father kept, and what had been her mother's maiden name. Elizabeth felt all the impudence of her question and answered them very imposedly. Lady Catherine then observed, "Your father's estate is entailed on Mr. Collins. I think for your sake," turning to Charlotte, a lot of it, but otherwise I see no occasion for entailing said estate from female line. It was not thought necessary in Sir Louis de Bourgh's family. Do you play and sing, Miss Bennet? A little. Oh, then sometime or little time we shall be happy to hear you. Our instrument is a capital one, perhaps superior to. You shall try it some day. Do your sister play and sing? One of them does. One of them does. Yeah. Why did you not? Why did you? Why did not you all learn? You ought to all have learned. The Well, Miss Webbs all play along, and their father has not so good an income of yours. Do you draw? No, not at all. What? None of you? No one. Not one. That's very strange. I suppose you had no opportunity. Your mother should have taken you to town every spring for the benefit of masters. My mother would have had no obligation, but my father hates London. Has your gardener left you? We never had any gardeners. No gardeners? No gardeners? What was that How was that possible? Five daughters brought up at home without a gardener's? I never heard of such thing. Your mother has been quite a slave to your education. Elizabeth could hardly help smiling as she assured her that had not been the case. Then who taught you? Who attended to you? Without a governess, you must have been neglected. Compared with some family, I believe we were, but such of us as we wished to learn never wanted the means. We were always encouraged to read and had all the masters that were necessary. Those who chose to be ideal, certainly mine. I, no doubt, but that's what a governess will prevent. But if I had known your mother, I should have advised her most. Let me look up this word. My goodness, it's raining. Rain, 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 rain.
Strenuously.
Strenuously to engage one. I always say that nothing is to be done in education without steady and regular instruction, and nobody but government can give it. It is wonderful how many families have been the means of supplying it in that way. I'm always glad to get a young person well placed. Our four nieces of Mrs. Jenkinson are most delightful, situated to my means. And it was but the other day that I recommended another young person who was merely accidentally mentioned to me, and the family are quite delighted with her. Mrs. Collins, did I tell you of Lady Metcalfe's calling yesterday to thank me? She finds Miss Pope a treasure. Lady Catherine says she, you have given me a treasure. Ah, any of your younger sisters are Mrs. Bennet? Yes, ma'am. All. All? What, all five out? What? All five at once? Very odd. And you only the second? The youngest ones before the older are married. Your younger sisters must be very young. Yes, my youngest are not 16. Perhaps she is full of young to be much accompanied, but really, ma'am, I think it will be very hard upon young sisters that they should not have their share of society and amusement because the elder may not have the means or inclination to marry early. The last born has such good as good right to pleasure of use as the first, and to be kept back on such a motive, I think it will not be a very likely to promise Cicely affection or delicacy of mind. Upon my word, said her leadership, you give you give your opinion very decisively for so many young for so many young a person. Pray, what is your age? With three younger sister giving up, replied Elizabeth, smiling. Your leadership can hardly expect to own it. Lady Catherine seemed quite astonished at not receiving a direct answer, and Elizabeth suspected herself to be the first creature who had ever dared to trifle with so much dignified impertinence. Imper- impertinence. You cannot be more than 20, I assure. Therefore, you need not to conceal your age. I am not 1 and 20. When the gentlemen had joined them, tea was over, the card tables were placed. Lady Catherine and Sir Williams and Mr. and Mrs. Collins sat down to the quadrille, and as Mrs. De Bond chose to play at casino, the two girls had the honor of assisting Mrs. Jenkinson to make up her party. The table was superlatively stupid. Scarcely a syllable was uttered that did not relate to the game, except when Mrs. Jenkinson expressed her fear of expressed her fears of Miss the Bonds being too hot or too cold, or having too much or too little. A great deal more passed at other table. Lady Catherine was generally speaking stating the mistake of the three others, or relating some anecdote of herself. Mr. Collins was employed in agreeing to everything of her leadership said, thanking her for every fish he won, and apologizing if he thought he won too many. Sir Williams did not say much. He was storing his memory with his antidote and noble name. When Lady Catherine and her daughter had played as long as they chose, the tables were broke up, and the carriage was offered to Mrs. Collins, gratefully accepted, and immediately ordered. The party then gathered round the fire to hear Lady Catherine determine what weather they were to have on the morrow. From this instruction, they were summoned by they were summoned by the arrival of the coach, and with many speeches of thankfulness on Mr. Collins' side, and as many bows on Sir William's, they departed. As soon as they had driven from the door, Elizabeth was called on by her cousin to give her opinions of all that she had seen at Rosings, which, for Charlotte's sake, she made more favourable than it really was. But her commendation, though causing her some trouble, could by no means satisfy Mr. Collins, and he was very soon obliged to take her leadership praise into his own hands. I'm done. It's so hard to make like different characters reading this book, but I tried. I did try, and I'm so proud of myself for reading this. And I'm gonna read the next chapter tomorrow. Yeah, I am. I'm gonna read the next chapter tomorrow. I'm so proud. I'm so proud. I'm gonna read the next chapter tomorrow. Yeah. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye bye.